Tales from the Borderlands is fan-fucking-tastic. It's an interesting one because we're continuing with games I have already played, but I only played this the one time back in 2016 after I had toe surgery. Or maybe before, it was around that time. All I really remember about the experience was getting my feet numbed up via a singular needle, but I later learned that it was actually several in both feet, and I just couldn't feel them after that first one, so I guess it did the trick. Also, it's worth mentioning that I should probably be saying toenail surgery, since the actual operation involved the removal of two of my nails, coincidentally, the same toe on either foot. Sorry to the person eating right now. Oh, and one of the main characters of this game shares my name, but it's not spelt the same, so don't be thinking there's any kind of bias here, outside of the inherent biases we all have. Otherwise, I could only vaguely remember certain images. The actual proceedings of the game had long left my memory banks. This is in stark contrast to Telltale's very next game, in which I had forgotten every single thing. Well, maybe not stark contrast, but it's a pun. Here, I thought moments in earlier episodes happened far later. I was completely thrown off by a big reveal later in the game, and the entire experience was a great one because this is the first of Telltale's choice-based games to lean almost entirely into comedy, and it's actually very funny. The illusion of choice is no longer something that feels like it must be maintained, a tightrope act so as to not lose players in the drama of it all. The Walking Dead got around it by being the most well-realized and written game of the bunch, but Tales from the Borderlands does the same by laughing at the illusion and using the medium of gaming to tell a wonderfully interactive story, where you're less making important choices and more making silly jokes. Instead of whose life do you save, it's more, are you a sellout? Yes. It's also worth saying that I haven't finished any Borderlands game, besides this one. I played a fair bit of the first one some years ago with a friend, but that's about it. Despite all that, this actually ended up being my favourite game of the bunch. Somehow Tales from the Borderlands beat out The Walking Dead. Let's get into why, shall we? We'll try anyhow, I have no idea how to write. The first episode follows Reese, a Hyperion lackey of sorts who has been haggling for a promotion for some years. He finally gets that promotion, only to be demoted down to assistant vice janitor by Patrick Warburton, who is now Reese's boss, and I think the guy floating behind him was his old boss. The fact I was mentioning his portrayal of Wolfie... why am I crying? The fact I was mentioning his portrayal of Wolfie and Hoodwinked a few games ago, and now he's actually in one of these games, is madness. Patrick gets a call about a vault key, which prompts Reese, his buddy Vaughn, and their buddy Yvette to steal Warburton's key, the singular, for themselves. That's the general setup. Adventure ensues. Once on Pandora, it's abundantly clear that this is the most fleshed out gameplay in a while. Reese has this Echo Eye implant that lets you scan shit, and you can even call in a loader bot and select its primary and secondary attachments, all the while Vaughn has a $10 million briefcase cuffed to him for the vault key. My voice just went up there. A little later, you can even violate the user agreement of Loaderbot and jailbreak it, modifying its weapons. It's also the first choice. Do you let it self-destruct or evacuate as the two are attacked by bandits? I did that one. I love how traumatized these guys are from this attack. They're very clearly not fit for the job, and are also, I guess, the bad guys. We meet with Sasha and August voiced by Nolan North, who decides to take the piss out of my name.
It's Reese.
Reese?
Reese.
Isn't that what I said?
Sure.
Thanks. Reese. Yep. Got that. W. Reese. Oh, fuck me. Well, no one will, so... Oh, God. Okay. Where's my Reese gone? Okay.
You take him. Looks like a right virgin. I think is that what you want me to say?
I've lost all composure now. Okay. The story changes perspective here as we realize that Reese's recounting of events may be a bit exaggerated. The reality of things is that the vault key they're trying to buy is a fake, and we then play as the people trying to con the characters we were just playing as. In Reese's version, August is more cowardly and unsure, but in Fiona's actual version, he's more ruthless. Yep, we're in media res, folks. The story that we're actually experiencing is being retold by the protagonists, which predictably gives way to a lot of funny misinterpretation of events. For example, Sasha gets cold feet about the meat and backs up towards this vent before randomly changing her mind. We later learn that it's so Fiona can attach an EMP on the case so Reese's Echo Eye scan will fail and he won't realize it's a fake. That would work if he didn't just drop it instead. My only gripe about this is that I wish we could see Fiona in the vent from Reese's perspective. I understand that they're just trying to keep it a secret, and I guess it sort of works if Reese isn't mentioning Fiona in his retelling of events, but it's just one of those little things that I do differently were up to me. But thank God it isn't, because Reese doesn't even actually know that Fiona is there, so if we are playing through his memory of the meet, I guess it actually wouldn't make sense for her to be viewable. Man, this game must be flawless or something. Also, that wasn't funny, so it was a bad example. Everyone ends up in Fiona and Sasha's caravan, being forced to work together to get the case of money after it's yoinked, as it can't be opened without Vaughn's passcode. Arriving at a bandit campground, Reese devises a plan, and while imagining it, everyone has already made their way over to the hatch in question. Sasha and Reese end up together, and there's a hilarious moment where she effortlessly takes out a bandit, only for Reese to struggle to the point where the bandit starts playing along with it. It's really good character stuff. From here, it's utter mayhem, as Fiona and Vaughn are somehow entangled in a crazy roller derby event, whatever, and it is metal as fuck, if I may. May I stand unshaken? I'm not standing right now. I'm not even sitting right now. Ooh, what's he doing? Reese gets an insane kill on this big skag creature after it swallowed the briefcase, using the sword of Zer0, a character from, I believe, Borderlands 2. They have a super adorable interaction, and this guy also has an inexplicable feud with this big psycho guy throughout the episode. They're the reason the initial meet didn't go off, and it's so fucking hilarious to me that these two are just trying to kill each other during our whole objective, and we keep crossing paths with them. I absolutely love that. Long story short, the case ends up exploding after Fiona and Sasha's mentor tries to con them. Luckily, Reese falls through the ground into an underground Atlas facility with expensive weapons and tech. Atlas are like the Half-Life opposing force to Hyperion, I think, now seemingly defunct. They then find two pieces that make the Gortys project, the core of it being used to find vaults. Or something. Again, bad comprehension, if I didn't already say it. Handsome Jack then appears, which should probably be explained. So, he's dead, but Reese inserted an ID drive into his head, which essentially put Handsome Jack into Reese's mind. Reese is actually a self-proclaimed fan of Handsome Jack, so it's quite funny that he is literally living in his mind rent-free. I really loved this first episode, especially seeing the different perspectives of key moments and how surprisingly lengthy it was. It is very full of content, which doesn't sound right no matter how I type it. There was almost too much going on. It was such an unrestrained introduction in a great way, as the pace is so quick. I also like that a bunch of desk jockeys and con women are our protagonists. They're pretty unremarkable and definitely not vault hunters, now setting off to do a vault hunt. A very strong start to a very strong game. And on that note, I want to stop right there. As mentioned, this ended up being my favourite game of the bunch. I ran through the first episode to give you an idea of what to expect, but this is the only game where I'm going to extend a spoiler warning of sorts. If you have not played this game yourself, genuinely stop watching and go do it. If you have the game and never played it, please play it. I know Telltale Games are like the proprietor of games you don't need to play for yourself, but seriously, you really should give this one your time. And from this point on, I'm going to try and be somewhat brief, because I realized while writing the third episode that I likened this game to making a joke, and to talk about the game in such length would be equal to explaining the joke. And if you have to explain the joke, well, you know. So that's your one and only warning. Fucking play this game. Again, I'm going to try and keep it briefer than usual. If you're this far in, you will understand that this is a challenge for me. And so is speaking.
I give it 4.5 stars.
Lovely.
Episode 2 has a hell of an introduction, with the force still underground. A retinal scanner is then activated and it alerts a General Pollux, but the alert sound is in the same room, which implies the General's in the room, which he is, and he's very dead inside of this container. Conveniently, there is a spork nearby, so we start by defiling a corpse to gain access. Reese randomly screams, and this causes Fiona to squash one of the eyes, with of course only one being left. Fiona very dramatically removes and delicately catches the eye so as to not squish it. The eye works, of course, though you'd think a retinal scanner might detect someone holding a detached eye, but I guess it's not a hand scanner. So the kicker here is that this guy wasn't dead. He was in suspended animation, and we just killed the fucker, squashing and removing both of his eyes. I feel like I could just move on to episode 3 right there, because this is the exact moment that the game completely won me over, and I was already fairly on side. But I was now entirely convinced that the game would not have a single misstep because of how fucking genius and hilarious and morbid this introduction is. And for the most part, that's true.
Is this Hold Me like Lift music?
There was an even more superfluous choice than usual in the first episode to steal a dying man's money, which I did, and it seems to actually have impacted later things, as Fiona has now twice taken money without the game asking me to confirm if I want to, when usually it would for things that minor. That's how you actually make the choices have some level of impact, by giving it to me once and then not letting me change my mind later for the sake of Fiona's characterization, therefore minimizing my input, but in a way that isn't as negative as that probably sounds.
That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing.
After a nice character moment that I'm usually fully erect for, there's a really great action moment where Fiona jumps off a roof onto Sasha's motorcycle while dodging this hunter's shield, only for Reese to butt in and question the reality of things. Eventually, we make it back to Scooter's garage, and there's another great moment of tension here as this bounty hunter is lying to her girlfriend about being retired, which prompts us to cover for her, even though she was just trying to kill us, if you want to. I don't think this is one of those moments where the game has to cover its ass by giving you the choice to blow the whole thing open wide, only to cut you off, as Athena's girlfriend Springs will actually pose the question, so I guess you probably could just lead with it. Athena obviously turns it around into her just happening to follow us directly to the same place, but I like that her chasing us is actually acknowledged. Most of the time, the scenes in Telltale games seem to be written in a way where the game is trying to predict what players are most likely to choose, then hoping that you choose it. Here, it feels like you're actually able to interject on the preemptive scene, organically changing the direction of it, when in reality it was probably always written this way because they wisely predicted that you would mention someone chasing after you. I took like 7 years to explain that, but maybe you know what I mean. Fiona and Sasha head to Old Haven, Reese and Vaughn already held up by August, and it's not long before Patrick Warburton finds the two girls. I just love his voice so much, by the way. It's so deep, but his voice constantly cracks, and it's perfect. Unsurprisingly, Hugo Vasquez, who's he, sees himself as Handsome Jack's successor, remarking their rapport and how Jack would always punch him in the face. Jack doesn't remember him at all. There's a pretty interesting moment where Vasquez genuinely tries to be nice to Reese, but you are able to make fun of him once Jack remembers him from the mailroom, nicknaming him a wallet head because he was bald and had hair implants or something. I still don't really get it, to be honest. By accepting this alley-oop of sorts, you're almost bringing out some of Jack in Reese, and Vasquez surprisingly doesn't get mad, but just seems upset by it. I now actually do get it, weirdly enough from an ASMR video by Luna Bloom.
Velcro head.
Oh! Took a while for the penalty drop there, but it did drop in the end.
Episode 2 is incredible. I already thought Episode 1 was a hell of a start, and that last hour was just insane, but this one managed to be even better. The way they're telling the story is such an engaging and obvious avenue for a game that largely lugs the player through it. Due to the gameplay being what it is, there isn't usually much to differentiate dual protagonists. Wallace and Gromit, Sam and Max, while being different people, and mostly not even people at all, ultimately they all play and act in the same kinds of ways. Here, Reese and Fiona are two fundamentally different people, and that is entirely conveyed through how they convey their journey and the other person's involvement, or lack thereof. The way they interject and interrupt each other, even the fact they have different UIs and HUDs when you're playing, it's so personable to them. Like, that's obvious, but, you know.
I'll give it 4.5 stars.
Lovely.
Episode 3 was easily my least favourite. As usual, it's due to that damn plot getting in the way of my vibes, but it's still a pretty good time. Even the worst episode here is nowhere near bad. Deus Ex Loaderbot once again comes to the rescue, grabbing names and taking cheeks. Grabbing cheeks.
It was a statue, you weirdo.
What a cum dragon, man.
Up the cum dragon.
What even is a Deus Ex Machina? It's such a stupid sounding term. Escaping the hidden city in a ghost town, we run into a queenpin Valerie, who executes Patrick Warburton, which is a massive shame. I loved his presence. It also seems to happen regardless of who you blame, as I blamed Felix for the whole thing. There's another hilarious choice in the form of Fiona cutting Valerie out of the deal, which results in her being cut into several little pieces. The great thing about a choice like this is that you know it isn't even happening, but it's just for a joke, so it kind of doesn't matter intentionally. Also, the deal she's being cut out of is in regard to this Gortys project ball leading to a vault. Vasquez was tasked as with acquiring it for her. Athena comes to our rescue. You'll notice that her shield comes out of our caravan of garbage because I fucking stole it, which is a nice touch. Turns out she was actually contracted by Felix to protect and help us on our vault hunting journey, which is such a bonkers reveal because that means Athena chasing us in the last episode and her subsequent handwave of attempted murder was actually true. She wasn't trying to kill us. The perspective of it also makes sense because Fiona would be retelling it in the way she thought it was actually transpiring. So that's a neat subversion, even if it didn't play out the way that we saw it entirely. Necessarily. Okay. Yes. Also, Vaughn is paralyzed and the ball is revealed to be Clementine after Reese finds a button and Fiona presses it. Teamwork. Also, the ball being Clementine is a joke because it's not Clementine, it's Ellie from The Last of Us, you know, Ashley Johnson and that. I don't know if I ever come back to that, but I wrote that in there, and I think I meant to correct it at the end and be like, oh, it wasn't actually, but I thought it was her the whole game. but it wasn't. So just putting that here now because I don't remember if I mentioned. Okay. Then it's intro time, the worst episode having arguably the best one, as it is a montage of the characters driving to an Atlas facility to get an upgrade for Gortys, made harder by Athena having murdered every single employee of Atlas. What the fuck, man? Anyway, the introduction is fantastic. They stop to do some target practice, Sasha cooks some weird egg toast thing, play cards of some sort, and D&D, I think. I love how the weather changes and you can see the characters once again bonding, as well as it being that slice of life stuff that I think Telltale does well. Part of me wishes this drive was just most of the episode, but I guess the charm of it is that it is a montage, and it'd probably be too similar to another game's third episode otherwise. The gang arrive at this dome, a sort of mushroom botanical terraforming thing which looks very pretty. Inside the pretty plant facility, Reese tries to move some rubble. I went to go and get Loaderbot's help, him and Gortys chatting while Vaughn remains paralyzed on his back. The two are having a conversation about Reese's tie and how strange it looks, but for some reason it sounded to me like they were talking about his penis at first, which was hella weird. I don't know if I'll get to it as well, but Vaughn's later reaction to being unparalyzed and now able to blink again is so fucking visceral, it's great. Yeah. He is helped by the last Atlas employee alive, a doctor by the name of Cassius. I didn't even clock it while playing, but you can actually see Gortys spot the doctor and then curl up into her ball-like form to hide, which would naturally prompt you to go and talk to her, revealing Cassius. That was pretty seamless, you know? Reese and Sasha go to a security tower so that Fiona and Athena can get into a bunker for Gortys' energy chassis upgrade. And I absolutely love this little cheesy moment of Fiona giving Sasha and Reese finger guns. It seemed a little weird from her, since she has this kind of demeanor of being brash, yet she's actually quite silly. Beside Athena, I guess you could sum up all the characters that way, but this one line from her to Cassius kind of explains it.
Glad I could help.
Well, hang on there, Doc. If that is your real name.
Like, just the way Laura Bailey reads that line is so over the top in a good way. I can't really put it into words, but I just got a kick out of it. Also worth mentioning that throughout this episode, there is a weird visual glitch where the foreground would be blurred and out of focus as if the depth of field was reversed. This will become a much more prevalent issue in another Troy Baker-led game on the PlayStation. Good lord. Of course, things go wrong for us as Fiona is tied upside down, Sasha comes to help, Fiona and Athena work together against some of the Vault Hunters from the main games, Gortys grows some fucking thick thighs during a Raiders of the Lost Ark-esque vehicular sequence, that's the one. It's good stuff mostly. Eventually the group is stopped by Valerie and her goons, Athena sacrifices herself to save Fiona, and that's about it. It's still a pretty good episode, but I guess I just have a general aversion to these more plot-heavy ones. I kind of just like when the characters are bantering with each other. I often don't even feel like I need all the action and plot, but that will become very apparent later, assuming I don't cut it out, because I was having a fucking crisis about it yesterday. Yeah, it's all good. I know what I'm doing over here. It's worth mentioning that the main writer for the game, Pierre Charette, didn't write this one, and Game of Thrones was also overlapping at this point. But again, it's worth noting that none of the writers cross between games here. Charette is actually listed as writing on this episode, at least on Wikipedia. Well, I don't know what the point of that was, other than to make sure you're aware of it. At the end of the day, they're still putting out 2 games at once. Episode 2 of Borderlands and Episode 3 of Game of Thrones were released just a week apart. It just seems like too much all at once. Surely the point wasn't to have 2 ongoing games for 2 different groups of people. Like, surely they wanted people to play all of their games, but there just isn't a very efficient way to do it. You either try to juggle 2 games at once, like they were, or you wait a near year to play each individually. Anyway, shout out man like Pierre, he's another class writer for Telltale. Also writing a lot of The Wolf Among Us. He's even writing the upcoming, but probably already released by the time I make this video, sequel. Oh yes. That aged well. Well, I wrote it about a year ago. Also, I'm not trying to slag any of these writers off for what I perceive as a lackluster episode. I hate individually singling out creators for criticism, even if they are a lead or main writer. I just think it's tacky and beside the point. It shouldn't matter who is writing something, only if it is good or not, and if it isn't good, that doesn't give you free reign to shit on a fellow human being. Unless they're like a garbage person or something. We're all just floating here. Who even cares? What am I doing? The same goes the other way. While I may endlessly suck off Sean Veneman for his writing of The Walking Dead, even he says that it's a group of people all working together. I doubt he wrote every single element of the episodes he is solely credited for. That's probably just not how it works.
I mean, there's obviously so much culture behind it. You've got the TV show and the comic books. Who wrote it? As a group, I mean, so Jake and I kind of came up with the story. The whole Telltale crew, like, throws in, we sit in a big room and we all fight about it, and we wait until people are all arguing about what they would do in a given moment, and then we know we have a good thing, and then we all go home and cry, and we come into work the next day and we make a video game. And that's how you do it. So there you go, you're welcome.
And ultimately, what would happen to Telltale isn't the fault of lackluster or shoddy writing, it's just bad management. Anyway, episode 4 of Tales from the Borderlands is probably the best episode Telltale has ever made. This episode contains easily the 2 funniest moments of the game, therefore I'd consider it the best, seeing as this is a comedic game and such. That's analysis.
That's analysis! That's what you're watching.
It's also here where my mind kind of clicked, and I believed that the masked figure was actually Vaughn. It isn't. The final beacon that will allow Gordis to... I don't know if I mentioned the masked figure, by the way, but... The final beacon that will allow Gordis to stabilize the constantly moving vault of the Traveler, hello Crooked Band's lair, is on Helios, so the gang must make their way back up to the space station in probably the actual best title sequence, which doesn't even happen until like 45 minutes in. Valerie allows them to do so, having her son August accompany them, since we've already done such a good job, so why not? They do this by transforming the caravan into a spaceship, Reese using Vasquez's body to get into Helios undetected, or at least his face. The way he does this is absolutely insane. Vasquez is now missing his face, as these iconic psychos have a skin pizza tradition that I thought Handsome Jack was saying as a joke. Finding the psycho with Patrick Warburton's face, it for some reason says, under new owner, Giggles. In case you didn't notice, yeah, I thought this was the game being cute by taking my username or something, but no, because I'm playing this on PlayStation, and on PlayStation, that isn't my username. So that was kind of terrifying, 2 of my monikers in the game. Anyway, Vasquez's body is blown into pieces, but we only really needed his face anyhow. It's like Mission Impossible, except Tom Cruise has actually cut off someone's face for a disguise. That's your however many Tom Cruise mentions, take a sip. I also want to mention a very unexpected moment early on in the episode, where Reese can finally reveal to Sasha and Fiona that Handsome Jack is living in his head. I did this somewhat expecting the game to naturally cut me off and not let me reveal it, but no, they let you reveal it, and then they chew Reese out for it. They say they can't trust him, all sorts. Obviously it doesn't affect things majorly going forward, but I was surprised that the game once again even let me mention something like that at just a random moment, when you think it would be like a big revelation later in the episode. I also love how you can tell Jack that he talks too much, and he will genuinely take it as someone being honest to him for once, and he appreciates the criticism.
You know, I know you love hearing yourself yammer on, but just spit it out, will you?
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Do I seriously talk too much?
You talk too much. Never shut up. I said you talk too much. Oh boy, you never shut up.
Thanks for your honesty. I really appreciate it, man.
You're welcome.
Long pause here till it gets awkward. I could do this all day, actually.
Yeah.
One.
Once in space, man like Scooter sacrificed himself by jettisoning, part of the ship as he has somehow gotten his arm stuck in a closing door handle thing. Words. Also, due to my playing on PlayStation, I was recording with PS5's built-in game DVR thing, and it has a limit of 1 hour. I'm mentioning this because Scooter explodes as soon as the 1 hour mark was hit, like it was spot on. The video ends here, that's it. Not this video though, we've still got another 17 hours or so. It's also a surprisingly somber death for a very comedic character. We're then gifted with the funniest scene thus far, as Risquez is accosted by 2 guards and you can greet them in a handful of inappropriate manners, only for them to mention your casual misogynism and homophobic remark in the workplace. Singular. They then mention that this captain's brother is about to marry his boyfriend, so I channeled my inner Vasquez and made fun of his mother, who is of course dead. Patrick Warburton's voice once again carries its perfect cringe comedy. Jack proves actually helpful, letting Reese know that the only way into his office is through a trapdoor he has. Even if he's a bit of a dickhead, he seems to genuinely like Reese. I like him too. Go on, Jack, go on. Go on, Handsome Jack. Fiona, Sasha, and Loaderbolt continue to the hub of heroism, which I mistakenly, and then continuously, call the Hall of Heroism in my notes, in order to get a tour guide's badge, as the only way into Handsome Jack's office is via a VIP tour, which is also very funny to me for some reason. I think I wrote that in the wrong order. But one guy here is having an important conversation, claiming Fiona is being rude trying to talk to him, only for him to turn around and ask what someone is wearing. in a crowded lobby area. Even the tour guide tries to make a move on Sasha after their plan. The place is just full of scumbags and we've been hearing about it all game, so it's nice to finally see it in action. We're then gifted with the actual funniest moment of the game, and maybe one of the greatest things I've ever seen. Riskez is stopped by some accountants who are mad at him for losing that 10 million. They then pull out finger guns, and what proceeds is an honest-to-God finger gun battle in the lobby room involving a good 100 or so people, with Riskez killing them all. It is absolutely fucking absurd nonsense. It is incredible. They really had Patrick Warburton making pew pew shika noises. Oh my fucking lord. It is the most wonderful piece of cheese I've ever seen from it. And then everyone just gets back up and goes back to work like it's nothing. It's not only fucking hilarious, but also shows how willing these people are to go along with Vasquez's delusions just because he's their boss. It is absolutely 5 stars all on its own. I've never seen anything like that. And then Reese's voice modulator thing starts screwing, so you have Troy Baker doing an impression of Patrick Warburton, which is also fantastic.
Hey, what's going on here with you all? How's it going?
I then realized that structurally, this episode is very similar to The Walking Dead's 4th episode, with Crawford. I don't like this episode anymore.
I hate this now.
Amen. Just kidding, as we climb into Jack's office, Jack shows us his trophy case, with the craziest information being that he actually owns Atlas, his rival, seemingly just in case he wants to rebuild them and destroy them again, which is a philosophy that Jack really seems to believe in. Handsome Jack gives us the chance to become ruler of Hyperion, calling back to a moment in the previous episode where Jack says he is going to help Reese get whatever he wants. He even tells Reese about his dead daughter, who he has a picture of on the desk, and it doesn't feel like a trick, he just doesn't mind telling Reese about it at this point. It works that your choice doesn't mean anything because Jack's entire scheme was presumably to find a successor and either manipulate or take over them to reinstate himself as Hyperion's ruler once more. Once again, I wrote the wrong thing. I said the wrong thing, rather. I wrote the right thing. As I said, I say all the wrong things.
So that was something that happened.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ross, for the thing that happened.
I haven't spoken much about Jack, as his presence is wisely subdued. He really isn't used much, but I would argue it is just enough so that you never really forget about him, but he doesn't take away or distract. He kind of just seems to be watching it all unfold, waiting for his moments to manipulate and mold Reese into his protege. As mentioned, episode 4 may just be the best Telltale episode, it's at least the best one I played. Wait, that's it? Wait, that's the ending? Wait, that's the ending? Wait, that's all I wrote for the ending? Just, and then as meant, oh, okay, I guess that's the ending of episode 4.
There's more.
Yes.
I don't bloody know. What else is there? There's other stuff.
We're
What have
always
I done this
doing
week?
stuff.
That's it. There's more.
A lot of this week is taken up.
As mentioned, episode 4 may just be the best Telltale episode. It's at least the best one I played. In fact, 3 of my top 5 were from this game alone, episodes 2, 4, and 5. So, we're at the end, episode 5. This episode actually has a bunch of what you'd call invisible choices. Obviously, the overt gameplay style is this rigid, pick one or the other, but there are actually a handful of moments that either will or won't happen based on seemingly innocuous moments, which I really like. It's not quite Spec Ops The Line levels of A, B, and if you are daring enough to attempt it, and C, but it is still more than we've seen to this point. I also didn't remember any of this episode besides the climactic battle, which may as well be out of an anime, not that I'd know. Reese ingeniously escapes Jack because his chair has wheels, only to run into Yvette, locked up and pleading to help her. I decided to leave her, but her reaction to this and screaming my actual name genuinely made me feel bad, so I went back and saved her, obviously anticipating her to just die in some other way, completely out of my control because that's what usually happens. That's analysis. The drama already is incredible, having just saved Yvette, and the game then bluffs you into saving her a second time, or letting her get sucked out into space, as they try to destroy the inner power core. The whole time I thought Yvette would sabotage things to save her own skin, which the thought of added tension. But this doesn't happen at all. She doesn't even die at all. She is literally at the end of this episode if you save her, which is a really cool thing to see. As mentioned, a seemingly innocuous decision that carries forward. Even if it doesn't matter, it's still kind of cool. It also shows the inherent subjectivity of, well, anything. What are the chances that my reason for saving her were because I share a name with the protagonist, which prompted me to go back? That's an entirely unique scenario for all the Reeses out there, I'd imagine. Shout out all my Reeses out there. We hate ourselves. Helios is then destroyed, Loaderbot sacrificing himself to get Reese to safety as there aren't enough pods installed for everyone to escape. By design from Handsome Jack, which I love. At this point, he's just such an overt villain, so that's pretty fun to see. After another introduction sequence, Reese slowly lumbers through the wreckage of Helios and Jack's office, with some great visual moments like his head... with some great visual moments like his head positioned similarly to a massive bust of Jack's, that same bust almost crushing Reese as if to suggest that Jack's massive ego and personality almost... well, you get it. Subtext in that, it's literal and figurative. It's analysis. We're then treated to maybe the best scene in the whole game, finger guns and Shaka notwithstanding. Jack makes a point I didn't even consider, how he must have just killed a bunch of innocent people in order to snuff him out. The guy is so evil that his evilness made me do an evil thing without even realizing it. In order to stop Jack from once again taking over Reese's body, he removes his own robotic arm and echo eye, completely destroying Handsome Jack once and for all in a fantastic moment that is also highly symbolic of Jack's mantra. Somehow. You can either crush the echo eye or keep it, which is what I did, even though it would have made more sense to crush it, but either way, it's a hell of a scene, sir. I didn't expect something so lacking in jokes given the rest of the game, but this is one of the best scenes in any of the games. Telltale really do, generally one-on-one, conversations in the climactic episode regarding your journey up to this point, quite well. I don't do sentences well. The in media res storyline abruptly ends when Fiona must shoot Gortys to extinguish the vault and its monster. They really try to make you think that it's the end of the episode already, Fiona narrating it all, but I know better as we cut back to the present. Remember how I said I thought Vaughn was the masked figure? Well, it's no wonder I did, because he ends up saving Reese and Fiona, now being a bandit psycho boss, even wearing the same mask as in episode 1's death race, and also being elected leader of a new base made out of what was left of Helios. We find out that Reese ended up rebuilding Atlas to make some new prototypes, like how Jack said. The corporate people even see Reese as their liberator, freeing them from their corporate shackles by destroying Helios. We then finally learn that the actual masked figure is goddamn fucking Loaderbot, and it actually makes so much sense. It's brilliant. LB, as we'll call him, saw Fiona shooting Gortys, and in his mind it was a betrayal of everything he sacrificed, so he kidnaps Reese and Fiona to find out their true intentions. He also does this in a genius way that I didn't even notice until the 4th episode, by literally having them retrace their steps. You see the three of them walk past all these landmarks of the story being told by them. They even find Gortys' energy chassis upgrade right as they're talking about it in the present. It's an incredible thing. It's an incredible. He even took the robot exoskeleton that was presumably meant for Handsome Jack. I don't know about you, but that's literally the last person I would have ever thought it would be, yet it absolutely works. He also immediately understands why we had to shoot Gortys, now bringing us all together to reconstruct her and defeat the Vault Monster, once and for all, instead of being unreasonably mad, which he never even was. And again, destroying something to rebuild it better than before. I really enjoyed that they all failed, went their separate ways, and had to be brought back together by the bloody robot. We're literally all just Luke Skywalker. What a goddamn game. Holy shit, I just realized what I wrote there as well. Brought back by the robot, R2-D2. Oh my god, did I mean to do that when I wrote that? That is analysis.
You know why that is? He's got a fighter's body.
Oh.
He's got long arms, like Brock Lesnar.
Okay.
Bad Bunny has, so he walks around like that. It's like, ooh,
okay.
business is about to happen. That's analysis.
Yeah.
So which one makes a good point? Because it's like, we end up laughing anyway. But yeah, no,
Was it a good point?
No,
He's got long arms.
And he knows how to use them.
And if you hate The Last Jedi and that ruined the game for you, good. Get better taste in movies.
I should say that was a joke on mine.
Oh yeah, good joke.
Or was it?
Do you remember the 2010 general election?
You then assemble your team with another unfortunate invisible choice. I was absolutely heartbroken to learn that I couldn't ask Zer0 to join my Vault Hunter team because he doesn't even know we are Vault Hunters, since we didn't identify ourselves as such to anyone throughout the game, therefore rescinding your opportunity to ask him for help. Everyone else is available, though given this example I'm sure some of them wouldn't be, and I was equally heartbroken and also very impressed that the game managed to call back to a character who appears in one episode of the whole game and actually have their inclusion mean something by the end. I don't know about you, but I was kind of feeling like my choices mattered, you know what? I was really stumped to pick my remaining two, knowing immediately Athena was going to be involved. I think I ended up doing another patented wheel decide, because I'm a cowardly little cunt, so I ended up with Cassius, and then flipped the coin between August and Felix, landing on August. Though I'm sure Felix would have been interesting given his betrayal of Fiona and Sasha. I seriously cannot give enough praise for this very simple nuance. It's a really cool way of making even the indirect stuff that you didn't realize would be important. Anyway, we hatch a plan to distract the Traveler so Fiona and Sasha can fly the caravan inside of it as it teleports, destroying it from within. There's a nice parallel in that the Traveler becomes aware that if it destroys Gortys, it too will disappear, kind of like Handsome Jack and Reese, I suppose. So we're all up in Gortys' business, and this bitch is doing fucking combos, digitizing everyone's collective moves. Also, it looks like they're on a game show. That's funny. It isn't too complex, but it's absolutely crazy for a Telltale game, and it really utilizes its gameplay in the most interesting way thus far. You really feel actively involved with the game, but in a very different way to The Walking Dead Season 1. Of course, we defeat the Traveler, utilizing the very same Helios oh my god. Moonbeam. That's the word I was stuck on. Sorry, I just went on like a tangent. Moonbeam that we were attacked with. Moonbeam that we were attacked with in episode 2. Oh my god, there, fine. I just hit the desk. Oh my gosh, why did that scare me? Okay.
Oh, what a good podcast.
Oh yeah.
Good effing God.
I'll attack there.
Jack, have you had anything to plug before? Oh no, the ceiling collapses or there's a flood.
Sasha sacrificed herself in order to do so, with Felix's gift finally being revealed and healing her back to a decent level of health. That was a weird sentence. It's quite counterintuitive though, as it ascends her into the air before dropping her right back on the ground. I wonder if the moment would be slightly different were Felix present for it. Maybe he'd have caught her. Reese and Fiona start weirdly running toward the vault entrance.
Why are you running? Why are you running?
They then very nonchalantly enter. Reese and Fiona chat about their futures, Fiona continuing down the path of Vault Hunter, and Reese continuing to rebuild Atlas, finally making it to the top of the corporate food chain. They open the vault, vanish, and that's your lot. Yes, another cliffhanger, but what a fucking game, who cares? I especially enjoyed that the episodes were actually fairly long. The first and final ones were both about 2.5 hours. Spoiler alert, none of the games will reach anywhere near that until Batman: The Enemy Within, which is still 8 games away and only 2 to 3 years away, somehow. Anywho, episode 5 is a hell of an ending. Another fairly straightforward epic battle thing, but there's a goddamn great reveal, and finally getting to finish the mission with a team of your choice, based on your choices, it's pretty spectacular. But then I had existential dread, once more, as the game informed me that by not destroying the Echo Eye, I had entrapped Handsome Jack forever in his own purgatory. That'll keep you up at night.
I give it 4.5 stars.
Lovely.
Also, let's quickly rank the introduction sequences since I wanted to do that, and this is my video. Number 5, Episode 1. It's pretty low-key, but after the initial sting, it's kind of dull. I do love how the violence keeps escalating, it's a great establishment. Number 4, Episode 2. I mostly like this one because the moment preceding it is great, and it's one of the only intros to seamlessly transition into itself, even controlling parts of it. Number 3, Episode 4. Easily the most epic of the bunch, and a good song to boot, but it's kind of just middle of the road to me otherwise. I'd say this and Episode 2 are about evenly matched. Number 2, Episode 3. I love the montage and seeing the group on their journey and the many detours they have along the way. Mostly I just really loved this shot. Once again, didn't write down what shot it was. And number 1, Episode 5, to my surprise, was just a fucking vibe, bro. Sorry, but I really dug this one and how somber it is. Nothing really happens, it's just Reese and Fiona individually escaping Helios, but I love the song here, and there's something really interesting about how nonchalant they are regarding the situation surrounding them as they come crashing to the ground. For a game as bombastic as this, I weirdly enjoy the more subtle introductions, and I really like how this one also seamlessly transitions. Really good stuff across the board though. Tales from the Borderlands is just the perfect game for a company like Telltale. I feel like they really excel with spin-offs and adaptations to properties that don't really have a through-line story-driven approach. Obviously Borderlands and Walking Dead have their own origins and stories, but it's a lot more overt here, and they really do well when not trying to replicate the successes of that initial IP, instead taking it and doing their own thing. I mean, imagine a game like this set in the world of Team Fortress 2, with all that lore and history and with the warring brothers and politicking. And apparently, what led to The Walking Dead was an idea being floated by Telltale to do a game like that for Left 4 Dead.
The first conversation was actually with Valve, and it was about what if we did a narrative side story in the universe of Left 4 Dead. That was when Sean and Carl had started this prototype of the sort of the boiling pots or spinning plates, and all
that was a text game. That was a text game.
But it was just a bunch of progress bars. If you didn't check on enough people, they would either boil over, or one of their events would cause someone else's story to like overcharge and start messing up. We didn't end up making a Left 4 Dead game.
I'm really glad that didn't work out.
But it turns out that thematically, that's actually a lot closer to what The Walking Dead is about than Left 4 Dead or even a lot of other zombie franchises. So it ended up being a really good fit.
That feels to me like the best area for Telltale to really do something unique and creative. A lot of the game's best moments wouldn't work in a more traditional first-person shooter, and this is kind of why a game like Game of Thrones is confusing for Telltale, as the show itself is written and interwoven in a way that Telltale could never stack up to, even with a side story approach for the most part. It begs the question of why is needed or necessary when you would be as well just watching the show. I generally can't stand when people default to, "Who even asked for this, guys?" as a form of criticism. Do you think anyone was asking for a time travel movie about a teenager and his weird elderly scientist friend? I mean, I'm sure someone was, but people seem to like that. So I guess a better wording would be, what can Telltale really elaborate on or add to make it feel worthwhile? Well, I guess we're about to find out.